Hey guys, David Robinson here. Welcome to the apartment investing journey. Super excited about our guest today, Ellis Hammond. How you doing today?
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me. Really pumped to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for taking the time. A little bit about Ellis. His investing journey began when he was still a full-time college pastor. With the goal to create passive cash flow for his family, he realized that investing in real estate could be an incredible resource to help his family and many others achieve financial freedom. He and his wife invested in a duplex in San Diego in 2018, and 9 months later, Ellis co-GP'd on a 144-unit complex in Memphis, Tennessee. Today, Ellis is the founder of Kingdom Capitalists, the number one.
Sorry, I'm taking selfies while he's reading my bio. No worries.
Ellis threw me off. He's taking selfies over there. He also manages his own network of investors who are seeking passive investment opportunities in multifamily apartment complexes across the U.S. So that's the short bio.
Sorry for disrupting you here, but people got to realize, man, if you're a real estate investor or you're building a business, promote.
Yeah, I hear you.
Selfies, there's no shame in selfies anymore.
Hey,
right?
no.
Like, if people don't know you, they can't buy from you. Remember that.
Hey, well, we're going to get into this today because you do have some tips that you can share on this stuff. So, the premise of our podcast is to get the whole journey. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like you to just back up and tell us your story. I always like to say you were born and then what?
Yeah. Wow, man. How far do you want to go back?
Give us an idea of your background and how you made the transition. We'll kind of
stick to the real estate side of things. I mean, but it is worth noting. I guess if there's a tagline to my journey into real estate, it's from missions to multifamily. I was a college pastor and, my job looked a lot like a missionary. We were building communities of faith on college campuses across the city of San Diego and building teams to be able to do that. Still love that ministry and the mission of that, and really helping college students think more deeply about their purpose and their why, and really developing them as young leaders. But we were raising every single dollar that we needed in order to fund our ministry, in order to pay for our groceries. I mean, like we were fundraising, and that's how we lived, and that's how we sustained, everything. Not just our own salary, but the people that we were hiring and their salaries. And man, it just got hard. Like, as you're growing an organization, you're raising money. Some people can do that really well and they raise a lot of money, but it was a struggle for us. And I think, man, it just kind of like clicked. Like I got hungry to figure out there's got to be better ways to build wealth and create capital. But the problem was, man, I had no idea how to do that. My dad passed. He was a business owner, entrepreneur, but he passed away when I was 21. I went to college. That didn't help any. And so no one teaches you how to build wealth, right? They teach you how to go to school and maybe get a job, but they definitely don't teach you how to invest, and they definitely don't teach you how to, begin to actually create generational wealth. There's no class for that. And like I said, my father passed away, so I didn't really have any great mentors to kind of teach me about that. And then I was in ministry. So nobody was going to, really thinking about this. And I was a month before I got married, I was in the car and I heard a radio ad that said, hey, if you want to learn how to build wealth through real estate, come check out this 2-hour seminar. And I was at the right time in the right season where I was like, that sounds like me, man. Let's go check this out. And I remember going to this 2-hour seminar. It was a total pitch fest. But what happened there was a turning point for me. That's why it's so important in my journey, is that it's when I realized I kind of sat in this room of all these guys who were telling these stories about investing and building wealth through real estate. And it hit me for the first time that you don't have to be a millionaire to start buying real estate, to start investing in real estate, that you actually don't have to be the 1% to begin to build wealth like the 1%. And I always had those things backwards, that one day when I make a lot more money, then I can begin to invest in real estate, and never realized, no, my journey to become one of the top 1%, in the sense of like my wealth and my capital, which we can get into that and why that's a goal for me, but that it actually starts with real estate. And if these guys can do it, heck, I must be able to, I should be able to do something. So that's how I got into it, man. I'll stop there. We can get into it more.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I want to dive into a couple of things that you mentioned, but I love that quote. You don't have to be the 1% to invest like the 1%. That's great.
Yeah.
So tell us, here you are, you're on college campuses, you're raising money to support your ministry, and it's a struggle, right? You're struggling to provide for the family, you're struggling to provide for your organization, and you start thinking, okay, there's got to be a better way. You go to this investment seminar, and all of a sudden you hear a few things that sort of click, but there's a lot of people in the world that have a similar experience to that. They think about it, they hear something about real estate or building wealth, and then they go home and go about their daily routine.
Yeah.
What was it about you in that moment that caused you to say, okay, I've got to make some shifts? And then let's talk about what was the process that you went through?
That's a great question, man. I mean, a part of it was like, I knew the path we were on was not sustainable. I was tired of being poor, and not being able, like, I knew the things that we wanted to accomplish in our life and the path that we were on, and having to raise money in order to do that. We weren't going to be able to do those things if we were just dependent on everybody else. And so that was definitely a motivation for me. So like, I just felt like my why was there. I wanted to be able to be not just a good steward of my time, but also a good steward of my wealth. And I didn't have any wealth, right? So you can't be a good steward of it if you don't have it. So we wanted to have it. And then, so my why was there. We always talk about why, but I'll be honest with you, man. Like it was curious. I was hungry. It was interesting to me. I was like, it was, for me as a minister, as a pastor, and like, it's hard I kind of liked it. Like, it's hard when as you're a pastor or a minister, if your business is relationships, it's really hard to measure. Right. But real estate was one of those things that kind of like, I could measure, I could put in 10 hours and look at so many deals. And there was like a tracking thing to it. And so that kind of, was like, oh yeah, wow, this is a good mix between my relational business, you might call it, and real estate. But then also, man, like, I remember hearing this so many times, listening to podcasts like this, where the guests would say, hey, that first deal is always the hardest. You got to do the first deal. You got to take action. And I was just like, all right, I got to figure out how to do a deal, like, that's the tipping point is one deal. And so, yeah, man, I just literally listened to every piece of content and read I remember going on vacation and I rented like 8 books from the library, all real estate. And, my wife was like, are you serious? Like, this is vacation. I'm like, this is going to be great. I'm so
that's
excited.
Awesome. Love it.
Right. So, yeah, I just was hungry. I was hungry to, figure out how to do. I like a good challenge, man. And real estate felt like a challenge because we were starting from zero.
So what were the steps that you took? You talk about, starting to consume as much content as you possibly can, listening to podcasts, that type of stuff. Yeah. But what were the steps that you took to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's really easy. It's being incredibly evangelistic about your calls, meaning you need to tell everybody, like, whatever your goal is right now. If you want to buy your first property, you need to tell everybody. Don't be ashamed of it. Like, if you're trying to buy your 10th property or raise $10 million, you need to be an evangelist of your calls. And I'm good at that because I am an evangelist. I was a missionary. So that came easy to me. The second thing, so I told everybody, and what that led to was, hey, I'm ready to buy a duplex. Do you know anybody that can help me? I mean, literally, it was the first thing I talked to anybody. And what that led to was me finding a mentor. So that was step number 2, is finding a mentor who could really help me essentially kind of fill in all the gaps that I didn't know. Because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so a mentor was huge. That was step number 2. Maybe step number 3 is gaining the support of your partner or your wife or your husband. That was huge, if we're going in step fashion. And then honestly, man, like, yeah, taking, once those are in place, like, and maybe, and we just started building a community too. Like, we found friends, other people who were investing in real estate that we could rely on and kind of asking them questions. So we had the community, we had a mentor. Like, I don't want to overcomplicate this thing. That's all you need in any endeavor. You need a community to rely on. You need a mentor to help you. Like, you can accomplish anything. That was life-changing for me.
How did you go about finding your mentor?
Dude, straight up, I was telling everybody I want to buy a duplex, and finally a coworker of mine was like, hey, my landlord, I think, does what you want to do. And I come to find out this guy's a very large apartment investor here in San Diego, California. And he, I think guys who have experience there and they've had success, like people they want to be mentors. They want to give back, they want to be able to share their success. And I found a guy who was willing to do that. And I remember though, going to him the first time, because this will be helpful. And, I was this young kind of ambitious guy, and I was like, hey, I want to get into real estate. He's like, okay, well, how much money do you have? And what's your experience? I was like, well, not much and not much. And he's like, well, okay. And, we kind of talked about some of the deals he was working on, and that was kind of it. And I realized like, okay, I don't think this guy took me super serious, but he did give me his email and said, hey, if you are looking at deals, like send me some stuff you're working on. And I'd send him stuff, and he'd kind of send me back some answers that I didn't really understand, and or be like, yeah, that looks like a good deal, but it didn't look like a good deal to me. And so finally I was like, hey man, let's meet again. Let me buy you dinner. I want to bring in a couple of properties I'm actually looking at, and we can talk through them. And so we did that. And I remember showing up at dinner, and we were looking through one of the properties I bought. He's like, well, I'll bring my team with me next week. We'll go look at this deal together. Well, beautiful enough. Not only did we go look at that deal, but we actually went and looked at a deal that he had found as well. And our first property was actually the deal that he found. The deal that I found, the cave, was looked like a V. And we're like, this is probably not a good first one. But but yeah, that was it, man.
So that's interesting. And here, I think there's a good takeaway here, that you went and found a mentor, but then you tried to bring value to him. You were out hunting for deals and opportunities to bring to this individual.
Yeah.
How were you at that point in time looking for opportunities?
MLS, mostly at that time. I think we did some off-market stuff where we sent letters to some properties as well, but mostly MLS.
And are you still working full-time in your role as a minister and pastor
Today?
No, at that point in time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we pretty much started everything, our apartment side of the business too, when we were full-time in ministry.
Awesome. Great. All right, cool. So take us from there. You present this deal to him at dinner, and he says, okay, yeah, let's go take a look at it. You go out and take a look at it. It's a mess. And he's like, but let's go check out this other one over here. How did that unfold, that process for you? Yeah, and what was like your role, and what was the discussion about how you were going to be involved?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, we had kind of we know how to underwrite a deal. We understood the financing. It was just getting lined up. Like, we had put the capital together. We actually had a family investor help us. We had put some money up. Our family investor had helped us put some money in, and then we brought in the sweat equity. And we knew, we were buying one of the ugliest houses on the best blocks, and knew that there was equity in this deal. And, it was going to at least break even from a cash flow perspective as well. And so we were able to kind of underwrite that and see that. But in some ways, still not really sure, is this really going to, what is equity again? And how is this going to get created? And I think a lot of ways we trusted our mentor. He's like, listen, dude, if you don't buy this deal, I'm going to buy it. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to lose out on something. So, we're going to go for it. And it's been a great property, man. We created about a little more than $100,000 in equity in 11 months on that deal. Able to refinance out our cash, or some of our cash, at least to pay back our family investor. And we Airbnb it here in San Diego. But I'll tell you the most important thing about that deal, man, so we can really probably transition to things that are really helpful, is I realize, not that this isn't helpful, but I think it's helpful to know, because I want to help everybody think bigger and take bigger steps and go bigger in their lives, because you're living for a bigger purpose than yourself. And if you're only thinking small, you can only accomplish so much. But it was during that deal, a couple of things happened. We were doing everything. We were doing the landscaping. We were doing, everything. And it was fun because we were learning a lot. But man, I realized that I was having to consume my time with $10 an hour work. And I just knew that my time was more valuable than doing something for $10. What I should be paying somebody $10 an hour for, but I didn't really have the margins to be able to pay them the $10 an hour to do the work. So I'd be hiring my buddies to come shovel dirt, and
right.
Hey man, I'll buy you pizza, and beer if you'll come over and hang. And so, that was one thing I happened to realize, because I'm doing small deals like this, everything falls on me. And that wasn't going to be a good sustainable model, because again, we were full-time in ministry. And then second thing happened during this time is one of the guys that was on staff with our ministry, he came to me during this season. And I remember, because we were raising all of our funds that we needed, and we were building this team, and people, believed in our vision, and we're excited to be on staff with our ministry, and they were having to raise their money too. And he came to me one day on the lawn of San Diego State University, and he said, "Hey, Ellis, I'm really struggling this month to buy groceries for myself, for my family." And, because he wasn't bringing in enough money from his fundraising efforts. And that really hit me. And that really hit me hard, because there wasn't a whole lot that I could do to help him, not from like a long-term standpoint. And I realized kind of in that moment that I'm thinking way too small about everything in my entire life. And I was not going to be able to create the type of impact that I wanted to create in this world, buying duplexes in San Diego for $300,000 a unit. Right. And doing everything myself. And that was a turning point for me to say, I'm open to what's next and to thinking bigger. And lo and behold, when you make yourself open to some things, God in his great mercy provides ways. And somebody literally reached out to me on Bigger Pockets and introduced me to the world of syndication, and how I could actually use other people's money to buy bigger deals. And so 9 months later is when we did our first syndication deal, which was 144 units. It was about a $10 million deal. And dude, that's changed everything.
Okay. This is great. So let's unpack that process then. So your mind starts to expand. You start to think bigger. How does one go from, buying a duplex and a single family home, fix and flip, to doing a 144 unit deal?
Yeah, a couple of things. When you think bigger, the problems get bigger, and you realize you can't solve all the problems yourself, right? So the I don't know what to call it, the double-edged sword about when you think bigger is it does present new problems, and you will never be able to accomplish those problems on your own. But the beautiful thing about that is that requires you to bring in other people, right? And to lean on other people's expertise. And so that was how essentially we got into the world of syndication. We just began to figure out who were those out there who were doing bigger deals. And honestly, it was just like the way that I met my partner in that deal. Is I would listen to podcasts like this, and I would hear their story. I'm like, oh, that guy sounds interesting. Let me call. He'd leave his contact information like I'll do at the end of this interview, and I would reach out to them, and I would set up phone calls, and I'd get to know people in this industry. And that was so helpful, because it allowed me to really build relationships and hear what other people were doing. And so we met our potential partner, and he owned a couple thousand units in this area that we invested in. And so we kind of went to building that relationship and talking about the idea of like, what would it look like to partner on a deal like this? Hey, we have a network of folks that we know who could potentially be interested in investing in your deals. Would that be of value? Again, because my value was in fundraising. That's what I've been doing for so long. And it was, people, these larger deals don't move forward without private equity. And so we had, a captive audience of folks that trusted us, that we built relationships with, and that were willing to go do a deal with us. And so, we got really sharp on our value, which was raising money and building relationships, and realized what we weren't very valuable in was experience and operations. And so we partnered with somebody who had all those things. And together we were able to do deals.
Man, what a cool story. So maybe we can chat about the process of building up a network and how a network can lead to bigger opportunities. What was the process that you went through? Now, you had been in the fundraising world, but more in a different lane. And now here we're moving over to investing in real estate. So even though you'd been raising money for your ministry, I mean, moving it over to real estate and those are different conversations, right? So what was that process like, transitioning?
Yeah, dude, it was hard, man. And it wasn't hard in the sense of like learning how to ask for bigger money. It actually got easier. It's funny how that is. Like, people are more willing to, I always say it's when I'm investing or asking for money for an investment, asking money for a nonprofit, people have two different pockets. You can guess which pocket is bigger, right? But so it got easier as we got into the world of investing. what became really difficult though, man, was this, not from my perspective, but from the perspective of maybe friends, family, other networks, was me as a pastor trying to do large real estate deals. And I just realized really quickly, I couldn't solely rely on kind of friends and family in that network to be able to sustain this next season of life, because they don't, like, everybody's like, no, you shouldn't be doing this because you're a pastor, or, no, you're a pastor. You're not a real, I don't trust it. Like, it was, I just realized like I had to outgrow my personal network. And I think anybody who's really going to scale their business, it's great to start there, but eventually you have to grow out of that, right? Like, you have to begin to build systems and structures and a network and a platform to really attract people who aren't in your network. And I'm proud to say, like, that's most of our network today, is the networks that we've built outside of that. And if you want to get real tactical, the way that I did that, man, again, I didn't really know people with a lot of money, so I didn't know where to go. And I couldn't go on Facebook because that was most of my friends and family. Instagram was kind of the same thing. So the one platform I turned to that I wasn't on and I knew nobody else was on was LinkedIn. And I would say, like, I've had tremendous success in building a network and finding investors and even building a personal brand through the platform of LinkedIn. It's been unbelievable for me and my journey, and even being able to transition out of full-time ministry and into, launching our mastermind and our podcast and our investment firm. Like, LinkedIn has accelerated that journey. It's so mind-blowing, dude. Like, how quick things can happen when you build a personal brand.
So let's talk about that, this branding aspect, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there in a lot of different stages of their real estate investing journey that have this idea, or that they have desire to build a personal brand. But what advice could you give them? What were the steps that you took to build your personal brand? Because it is significant. I've seen you all over LinkedIn, and you have a lot of great connections. So talk to us about that process.
Yeah, again, I hired a coach. That was one of the first things I did. I realized, like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I need someone who can help me. And he became much more than a coach, a friend, a mentor. But the three things that he would always tell me and really help me was kind of three questions in building a personal brand. And I think this is helpful for anybody, because what I did may not necessarily be the steps you need to make, but the principles are still the same. And it comes down to three questions. Who are you? Like, who exactly are you? You're not a real estate investor. That's not your identity, right? Like, at the core of who you are. I mean, I am a child of God. Like, I am a Christian man. Like, that is a part of who I am. I'm a husband, right? I'm passionate about leadership development, and that's a lot of who I am. And even asking my friends and family, hey, what are my superpowers? What are the gifts that God's given me? What are my strengths? And just beginning to learn who I am. What I learned about myself, man, I am really gifted and passionate about building communities. Like, I am someone who is really good at creating communities. I've been doing that for 6 years. I'm passionate about that. I'm a visionary. I'm more of a CEO type, right? Like, that's me. And then the second question, which was so important, was who do you serve? So who are you? Who do you serve? And that was really good, because then that helped me realize, like, who do I want to serve in this next season? And what I began to realize about, where I'm heading, and the reason I was even kind of wanting to transition out of this full-time ministry role, is I wanted to see more entrepreneurs, business owners, kind of visionaries begin to use their businesses, their wealth, their vehicles for capital creation, just and make a ton of that, like, 10x that, so that together we could do amazing things, so that that guy would never have to worry about buying groceries again. So it was really quick. Like, I want to serve kind of the 20%, right? Those who are really building the businesses and creating the capital. And what am I going to do for them is the third question. Who are you? Who do you serve? And then what do you do for them? Most of us start with question number 3. Well, what's my product, or what's my business, or what's my service, without asking the first two. And if you don't ask the first two, you have nothing to distinguish you. You're just like the 1,700 other real estate investors on LinkedIn trying to build their brand, and they're going after the same people, right? So you're not any different. You have to be yourself in order to build a personal brand. That's the whole point of building a personal brand, right? So third question is, what do you do for them? Well, I help business owners, entrepreneurs build predictable wealth strategies through real estate investing. Like that's what I do. You know, and then I have a mastermind to help Christian active real estate investors build an ecosystem and a community to grow their real estate businesses. You know, so like now I'm learning, like I'm still creating communities. I'm still serving the same type of people, but I have different things that people can enter into that I essentially do for them, my product or my service. So those 3 questions will change everything.
Man, I love it. Who are you? Who do you serve? What am I going to do for them?
Yeah.
What's the product? What's the service?
Yeah.
And I love how you were able to just, you have that ingrained in your mind about what you actually do for people. I love it.
And you know, it's like, and don't be scared to be yourself. Like, I mean, I'm pretty open about my faith. Like I think I've already said it a couple of times in this podcast, which, you know, you know, maybe you want to publish it or not, it's up to you, but,
absolutely.
No, the reason I shared that is like, I hear a lot of times people are like, man, it's funny how it's interesting or it's cool or it's admirable, or maybe they're like, it's weird how open you are about your faith on these different platforms. And I would just say, well, that's me. Like, I would be inauthentic to who I am without doing that. And it actually helps because it distinguishes me. Like it separates me from everybody else who doesn't want to talk about that. And what you begin to realize is like, there are people like you, right? Or there are people who you can serve, and because what you're not trying to do is serve everybody. And so, you know, I have a podcast show called Kingdom Capitalists, where it's this real niche of Christians who are committed to start and scale and grow businesses. And this idea of faith and wealth and business and money, those 2 things normally don't get talked about at the dinner table. But I figured out that no one wants to talk about those things, but there's so many people that are curious that why don't we just talk about them? And it's really allowed me to build kind of a niche target audience. And to be really successful, like you don't need mass, like, you know, I don't know what book that is, but you only need, I mean, I don't know what the sweet spot is, but you know, I'm like niche down, find your target audience and go serve them really well.
It's interesting. So was it scary to niche down that far? Because I think the natural tendency for almost everybody is to think you got to go bigger, right? You want to stay as broad as you can because you're worried you're going to miss out on, you know, opportunities to connect with different people. And you really have gone narrow, but it served you very, very well. So was that scary when you started to think about going down that path and getting that narrow?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And I would say this, like, I think I'm only getting more narrow, like the longer I go. I don't think even in the beginning, I was narrow enough. You know, it's like if you're just starting out, like I guarantee you're not narrow enough. Like you're not specific enough. You know, niche until it hurts, right? And then you can expand, especially in a startup, like especially early on. You know, like just speak to 50 people. You know, like, and then you can start kind of figuring out, because you don't, you know, it just gets easier when you niche down. And that's what I didn't realize. Now that, like for our mastermind, when we launched Kingdom Capitalists, so that's our business is Kingdom Capitalists. It's a mastermind community for Christian real estate investors who are building a business really around the investing industry. Well, when we launched Kingdom Capitalists in the podcast and we were going to do this mastermind, we were just Christian entrepreneurs and business owners. And I was like, oh, this is totally specific enough, right? Like we're going after Christian entrepreneurs and business owners. That's clearly good. And then honestly, it wasn't even me, but it was by chance that the first 8 people who signed up were all in real estate. And then I just realized, like, this is my value. Like, this is my tribe. This is my community. It's actually, the whole entrepreneurship business thing is way too broad for me. Like, who I'm really speaking to, I got to even get more niche down. So it was folks who are actively pursuing big deals in real estate and want a community around them for that. And then not just active real estate, but active Christian faith-based real estate investors. And so maybe I'll look back in 2 months and realize, no, that's still too broad. Like I need to go after, you know, commercial real estate Christian investors. Not quite sure yet, but it's going pretty well as it is right now. So I don't want to change anything, but maybe we need to niche down a little bit more, but we'll see. So to answer your question, like, yes, I think that's why hiring a good coach helped, because he was able to, like, no, you know, go in this lane. And then just over time realizing, like, I'm actually, it actually helps me because now I know where to go, like what conferences to go to. I know what podcast shows to be on. Like this is even the reason why we're on this show is because 2 months ago, when we made this decision just to focus on real estate, I was like, oh my gosh, if we're going to just do real estate, I know exactly what podcast shows to go on. I don't need to go after the 500 other entrepreneur business shows, right? I can just speak to real estate investors. And so that really helped me. And I'm hoping this is helping your audience think about like, okay, yeah,
Absolutely.
I need to niche down if I'm going to really speak to somebody. Because my story, I know, resonates with people that I'm speaking to because I'm speaking to the right crowd. I'm speaking to ambitious people who are typically purpose driven and they want more for their lives. That's why they're listening to a podcast show in general, and they want more out of their wealth building strategy. That's why they're listening to real estate, right? And so I know this is going to resonate because I'm speaking to the right audience, and I wouldn't know that if I didn't niche down.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. And this is gold. Thank you. So I want to, in the time that we have left, I want to dive into the, is it a 144 unit deal? Was that your first syndication deal that you co-GP'd?
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind if we just chat about that,
Sure.
do an overview of sort of that process that you went through?
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you find the deal? Where did it come from? And I'm assuming that you were, as part of the GP, you partnered with an operator who was experienced in finding deals in that particular market. Maybe just walk us through that.
Yeah, no, I think what's cool about that deal, and especially if you're just getting started out, like you're probably not going to go into a market and find a really sweet deal on your first try, right? Like that's the whole benefit of partnering and leveraging the expertise or the experience of others. And so the operator that we were working with, he owned about 2,500 units already in this MSA. And so it was a broker relationship, like a broker that, we had done deals with previously. And I mean, he knew that we had the ability to close and we had the experience to close. And so we got this deal off market, and I believe like we had to put $200K due diligence down up front, or not due diligence, but earnest money up front. And the reason we were able to do that is because one, like we had an experience with the broker, and we knew if he knew what kind of deals we were looking for, and he knew this was a good project, and we could come in with some hard money or some earnest money, and we were going to close if everything was right as they said it was, which it was, and we ended up closing. But this deal essentially came off market through our broker relationship. And really because the operator that we were working with, he had built good relationships with his brokers, and he had closed multiple deals. So again, that's why that first deal is always the hardest. It's honestly, even what we're in right now, and we're in new markets, is like, our strategy is not just to close one deal. We want to close 3 deals, bang, 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 because we know if we can, we build that track record of these guys just close 3 deals, they'll start bringing us property. So, but that's the hardest thing, man, is like a first deal or 2, like you're probably overpaying. I don't know. Like it just depends where you are, but it's definitely the hardest.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And so this was a 144 unit multifamily?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And what was the process like on your end of things in your role on the GP side of things?
Yeah. So I remember, just calling our network of investors, and we had kind of been talking about this with some folks. Say, hey, like this is the one we're gonna execute on, and here's why. And part of it was just educating like a lot of our investors. If you're listening to the show, like you get real estate, you understand why it's a good investment. But if you're trying to raise capital, you have to realize like, that crocodile brain, whatever they call it, is ready to just mush any new idea that's foreign to them. And so as safe or as predictable as real estate can be, if people aren't familiar or understand it, it really is. It doesn't matter how good the deal is. And so, we had to educate a lot of our investors. Hey, here's why we're going after this. Here's why we think this is a good deal. And a lot of that is this one was 96% occupied. We had a good team, a good management team in place who had been operating our other projects in the area. We had really good financing, some long-term debt already in place, so that, no matter, because everybody, even back in 2017, was still worried about the economy and what's going to happen. And so it was like, well, what happens if the economy turns down? I was like, well, so what? Like we have, 30 years fixed debt. And for our property to be any type of issue, I think we needed to be at like 65% vacancy. And, that property's probably never been that low, something, I mean, the thing would have to it's almost impossible for that to happen. Right.
Right.
So just helping them see like, oh, okay, I get it. And then here are the returns if we are able to hit what we're projecting. And then here are your returns if something goes wrong, and here's worst case scenario, and just kind of laying that out for people and educating them on, here's why this is such a great opportunity.
How long in advance would you say you started to prep your network for this opportunity that eventually came across your plate?
Yeah, definitely not soon enough, man. I mean, I wish, looking back at that project, the reason that we didn't get as much capital in that deal as we wanted to is just because we ran out of time, or I didn't know enough people to call on. And that was the worst part. Like I ran out of people to call. I was like, I don't have anybody else to call. I know we need more money. I could raise more money. There's potential to raise more money, but I don't have anybody else to raise money from. And, which sucked because we knew we had a great deal. And I was like, I don't have any, like, my network is always so big. What do you do? And
yeah. So what do you do?
I mean, I didn't do anything. I missed out. I was like, that was another turning point for me to realize like my network's too small. This is, I don't want to be in this position again. So it's too late, too little, I guess, is the best way on that deal. But to answer your question, not soon enough. Probably, I think that was September. We only, that all happened in 9 months. So less than 9 months is kind of when we started doing this. We were telling people about our duplex. Hey, we're looking at bigger deals now. So probably 4 to 5 months.
Gotcha. And so did you end up closing on that deal?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I misunderstood you when you were saying that.
No. Realize we had other partners.
There was other partners that were raising capital.
So they were able to help out.
You're talking about you specifically.
We could have been a bigger piece of that and had a greater contribution had we had a larger network. And that was, that was.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. That's great. All right, man. Well, I want to wind down here. I want to be respectful of your time. And so I want to ask you our final 3 questions, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, let's go. This has been fun, man. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. You've been a great guest. Shared some unique information with us here. So what's the biggest challenge that you've faced on your apartment investing journey so far?
Biggest challenge has been, I think, convincing myself, or like kind of overcoming the mental barriers of like, I can't do something because, well, I didn't go to school for that, or I don't come from this type of family, or I don't really have, I don't really know what I'm doing. And just changing that mindset to like, no, like I can figure this out. Like I can educate myself and I can get around, the right people. I mean, I just think the biggest challenge is like, I just keep thinking too small, and I'm so, so scared to run out of money or whatever it is. Like I just have an incredible poverty. I call it a poverty mindset. Like I'm still poor in my mind, and I act like that way so much. And that's been the biggest challenge, man, is just trying to get past that so that we can think bigger, we can execute bigger. And then, so the I always say our minds constantly lie to us. And I think the biggest challenge is just trying to kind of sort out what's true and what's not true.
Love it. Thanks for that. What's the biggest win you've had on your apartment investing journey so far?
I think the biggest win is realizing like I actually am more passionate about creating community than I am investing in real estate, although I still really love investing in real estate. And so our biggest win is probably forming Kingdom Capitalist, our mastermind community, and just bringing together like-minded individuals, faith-driven investors, and just seeing like that's my sweet spot, man. It's actually bringing together the movers and the shakers and being able to connect them and help them network and take their business to the next level. And the beautiful thing about that is I sit in the center of that. So now I'm getting more deal flow and I'm able to actually raise capital for other deals. And it actually is just when I was able to focus on my superpower or my sweet spot, how that actually even helped other parts of my business. And so that's probably been the biggest win, is just realizing like, you got to stay focused on what you do best and do that well.
That's great. All right. Last question for you. What is the best advice you have for someone who's just starting their apartment investing journey?
Hmm. I mean, I think those three questions we talked about are really key, you know. I think though, the best advice I always give. I mean, there's so much, man. You're just getting started. What would I want to known? I just wish I would have known know what I'm good at right away, and realize like you don't have to do it all. Figure out like what your superpower is, what your unique ability is. And then just figure out how do you leverage that, or how do you partner with others in order to take that skill and supplement that with somebody else. Like I am not good, or I do not enjoy underwriting and looking at spreadsheets. And so, now I have two guys on my team who can look at spreadsheets. So I was like, it's like, what I want you to do is I'm going to get a deal, because that's what I'm good at. I'll find deals. I find money. And when I get a deal, I want to send it to you. And then I want you to take all of these numbers and I want you to put them into words. And then when you translate them into words, then we can talk about it and then we can go from there. Right. But until you take that spreadsheet and turn it into a words or information that we can discuss, I don't want to hear about the deal. And so that would be one of my biggest and best advices is start, know what you're good at, and then start building a team or a community around you. Maybe that's another, if you're just getting started, mentor and team as well. I mean, there's nothing you can't do wrong when you're just getting started. The only thing you can do wrong is not doing anything, is not taking action. So just get going. I mean, that's the best advice.
Well, Ellis, you've been a great guest. You've shared a ton of information. I really like that we had a chance to dive into, this brand building, personal brand building, and the information you shared with us. Tell everybody, find a mentor, get support from your family and those that are around you. You mentioned your wife. You talked about how LinkedIn has been critical to your success in the space. And then those three questions: who are you? Who do you serve? And what are you going to do for those people? And man, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your thoughts, sharing your journey. Tell us a little bit about you and what you have going on right now and how people can connect with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of depends on where you are in this space. If you are building a business around real estate investing and your faith is something of value to you, or you aspire that to be a bigger part of your business, please reach out to us. You can find me on LinkedIn personally, but we have a website, kingdomcapitalists.co. There's an application on that page for our mastermind. We have a great podcast show that we're interviewing really successful entrepreneurs and business owners who are really, using their business and their wealth for building God's kingdom. So that's probably a cool place to learn more about us. If you're on the passive side, or you're learning, how do I want to invest more in real estate? We put together a checklist. I know, like when I was investing in early on, didn't know what all to look for, especially in these bigger deals. And so we put together a checklist. So you just go to ellishammond.com/checklist. And that's a great resource for anybody who is definitely looking to be kind of invest in real estate as a vehicle, but, not quite sure what all they should be looking for, because it is different. It's not the stock market, it's not Bitcoin. It's different, and there's things you need to be asking. So ellishammond.com/checklist. Those are two great places to connect with. LinkedIn. And then I said that already, for sure. Connect with me, send me a message, say that we connected here. Would love to get to know you on that platform. I put out about 5 or 6 posts a day on LinkedIn. So
great, man.
Would be great to connect with your listeners.
Awesome. Well, Ellis, thank you again so much for coming on, sharing your expertise and your time with us. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me again.
All right. Take care.